10 Fascinating WWE SummerSlam 1996 Facts. SummerSlam 1996 was essentially a two-match show, and even that depends on how you feel about the semi-main event. Up until the Boiler Room Brawl pitting The Undertaker vs. Mankind, SummerSlam 1996 was on the fast track to being the dullest SummerSlam ever to that point, with matches ranging from pedestrian, Owen Hart vs Savio Vega, Marc Mero vs. Goldust, to bad, four-way tag team title match, Jerry Lawler vs. Certainly, the freshness of the NWO and the Cruiserweight infusion on the WCW side took an even brighter shine by comparison. The Boiler Room Brawl, while grueling and violent, wasn't for all tastes, due to the intentionally sterile production in the match's first half. It was a polarizing presentation, for sure. WWE Champion Shawn Michaels vs. Vader is almost unanimously viewed as the best match of the evening, and even that encounter had its infamous tidbits. Through all of WWE's stumbles in 1996, trying to maintain its footing on ground rendered shaky by WCW tremors, SummerSlam 1996 is a window into pre-to WWE at its most ineffectively vanilla. While better than most of the 1995 tripe, it was clear that McMahon's circus still had a ways to go. Here are 10 facts about SummerSlam 1996 you may not have known. 10. Some different matches were announced in local cable ads. A little more than 1 month before the show, advertising in the Cleveland area listed the tentative lineup for the pay-per-view for prospective ticket buyers. For the most part, the advertised matches were on point, including Michaels, Vader, Undertaker, Mankind, and others. There were, however, two notable matchups that did not take place. One of them pitted the Ultimate Warrior against the British Bulldog. Warrior had acrimoniously walked out on WWE at the end of June, and was replaced on future events by a returning Psycho Sid. That included SummerSlam, with Sid taking the match against Bulldog. The other locally advertised match was Intercontinental Champion Ahmed Johnson squaring off with Owen Hart. The listed card was released before the debut of Farouk Asad, who would immediately enter into a feud with Johnson. Owen was paired with Savio Vega instead. 9. Ahmed Johnson missed the show with a dire injury. Johnson and Farouk were set to square off at SummerSlam for the Intercontinental belt, stemming from Farouk's debut on the July 22 episode of Raw in which he assaulted Johnson. That debut, however, would have horrible implications for the reigning champion. During Farouk's run-in, he kicked Johnson harshly in the lower back, and Johnson would later say he felt like he'd been shot. Johnson recalls that Vader noticed him breathing funny later that night, and Ahmed was taken off the road following those Raw tapings. The pain didn't subside, and the Wrestling Observer newsletter reported that Johnson wound up in intensive care, requiring emergency surgery on his kidney on August 6. The SummerSlam match was scrapped, and Johnson would end up vacating the belt, which was later won by Marc Mero in a tournament final. 8. Skip injured his neck 9 days before SummerSlam. Another injury to a championship match participant had an effect on SummerSlam, but didn't require as much shuffling as Johnson's predicament. Chris "Skip" Candido of the Body Donnas had suffered a cracked vertebrae at the August 9th live event at Madison Square Garden. The injury apparently occurred during the Body Donnas match with the Smoking Guns, when he landed awkwardly taking their Sidewinder finisher. The injury didn't play too much of a role in Candido's SummerSlam outing. He and partner Tom "Zip" Pritchard were the first team eliminated from a four-way tag pitting the tag team champion Guns, the Godwins, and the New Rockers. Candido wore a neck brace to the ring, and performed zero physical activity before Pritchard was pinned 4 minutes in by Billy Gunn. 7. Marc Mero's Wild Thing was first attempted in a ring that day. SummerSlam 1996 was certainly a show heavy on villains winning. Up until the main event, the only babyface that won their outing was Psycho Sid, which could lead one to theorize that WWE Brain Trust wanted the crowd to save their biggest pops for polarizing Michaels at the end. See WrestleMania 32 booking theories. It makes one wonder why Marc Mero got to debut a spectacular new finishing move if he wasn't going to be victorious. Mero busted out a shooting star press, dubbed the Wild Thing, on Goldust late in their match. It awed the crowd for sure, but Goldust still won. Mero had never performed the dazzling flip in a ring before that night, and had only been practicing it at a local gym shortly before the card. Thankfully, that first Wild Thing hit its mark. 6. Jake Roberts hated his feud with Jerry Lawler. Jake Roberts' issues with intoxicants and alcohol have been long documented, and the Snake became an unintended poster child for wrestlers that were miraculously still alive, despite their deadly addictions. In 1996, Roberts was still struggling mightily to stay clean, despite his character being that of a man who used the word of God to help conquer his demons. For the feud with Lawler, the King taunted Roberts mercilessly for being a drunk, even brandishing booze bottles in front of him to try and rile him up. Roberts would later lament having taken part in the angle, saying that it was a place that WWE didn't need to go. Tempting somebody struggling to remain sober, even as part of a work, isn't the best idea. Roberts fell on even harder times in the ensuing years. His wince-inducing appearance at the 1999 Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view was a prolific rock bottom, before Diamond Dallas Page helped him achieve many personal breakthroughs several years back. 5. The first half of the Boiler Room Brawl was taped. The Undertaker and Mankind had to brawl from the Boiler Room inside a gun arena, all the way to the ring, where Undertaker's manager, not for long, Paul Bearer waited with the urn. Whoever physically claimed the object, the urn, not Paul Bearer, would be declared the winner. As stated earlier, the Boiler Room Brawl was something of a polarizing spectacle. Before the days of Titantrons, WWE actually had to wheel televisions to ringside for fans to watch the early stages of the fight. Pretty archaic, no? Additionally, the first half of the match took place the night before, filmed for insertion into the pay-per-view broadcast. Mick Foley remembers that Undertaker did promotional appearances for most of that Saturday, and was physically drained by the time he arrived at the venue for his knockdown, drag-out fight with his mortal enemy. 4. Foley nearly suffered a career-ending injury on the ladder spot. There have been more famous instances of Mankind winding up badly hurt in matches against The Undertaker, but his SummerSlam 1996 injury almost had greater implications. During the course of brawl inside the actual boiler room, Foley landed painfully after one particular sick bump. Mankind had climbed a basic wooden ladder leaned up against the wall of the room, ostensibly to drop the trademark cactus elbow. Undertaker countered by pulling back on the ladder, causing Mankind to fall backwards when the apparatus was perfectly vertical. Foley aimed for some cardboard that was in place as a pseudo-crash pad, but the lower half of his body missed the mark. Foley badly damaged his sciatic nerve on the landing. The residual pain, along with severe disc damage, would worsen through the next 7 months, up to the weekend of WrestleMania 13. At that point, Foley began undergoing rigorous self-remedy sessions in order to avoid needing an epidural. 3. Vader admits he made the mistake that led to Michaels shooting mid-match. Michaels was a paradox between the ropes, the smoothest and savviest wrestler this side of Ric Flair, but also demonstrated the qualities of an emotional hurricane. WWE champion at his worst was prone to throwing tantrums inside the ring, and one such incident occurred at SummerSlam 1996. During the main event match with Vader, Michaels vaulted off the top rope with an attempted flying elbow smash. Per the plan, Vader was supposed to roll away, and Michaels would have landed on his feet instead of crashing. Michaels would then hit a simple elbow drop in something of a cute double reversal. Vader, however, forgot to roll away, but Michaels still landed on his feet as intended, though he could have potentially just hit the regular flying elbow when he saw Vader wasn't moving. Michaels then angrily struck the down Vader and cursed him out with the entire world watching. Unprofessional as it was, Vader would later admit that he was at fault, and felt his mistake kept the match from being better. For his part, a much more mature Michaels would say years later that he should not have lashed out the way that he did. 2. The Vader, Michaels match was originally supposed to have a different ending. When the dust settled at SummerSlam 1996, Shawn Michaels was left standing as the winner of the main event, having vanquished Vader with a moonsault. The mostly clean win, after 2 restarts where Michaels was counted out and disqualified, pretty much ended Vader's run as a serious main eventer in WWE. Per the original plan, he was actually due for more. The match was supposed to end with a non-finish, leading to an eventual rematch at Survivor Series. There, Vader would defeat Michaels for the belt. This would led to Michaels exacting revenge in his hometown of San Antonio, regaining the gold at the Royal Rumble. Further evidence of Vader's planned reign is found in the December 1996 In Your House's subtitle of its time. What happened? Apparently, Michaels loathed working with the brutish, hard-hitting Vader, and had openly cursed him out during one pre-SummerSlam house show match for grabbing the champ too harshly by the scalp. Jim Cornette goes as far as to say that Michaels even threatened Vader's job due to his stiff work. Sid would be swapped in for Vader during the Survivor Series Rumble portion of the intended plan. 1. It had the lowest buys of any SummerSlam, pre-WWE Network. The demons of 1995 had not yet been fully exorcised, and WWE was still trying to figure out how to counter the wallop that WCW was packing. Clearly, relegating the increasingly popular Stone Cold Steve Austin to SummerSlam's pre-show match showed that they hadn't figured things out just yet. SummerSlam 1996 ended up with just 157,000 buys. It was the only SummerSlam to do less than 200,000 buys prior to 2014, managing to top, bottom, the hideously low 205,000 buys from the previous year's event. That's a whopping 23% drop from 1995. The 2014 and 2015 editions did 147,000 and 123,000 pay-per-view buys respectively, sparing SummerSlam 1996 the complete ignominy of being the least bought SummerSlam ever. Still, it's pretty damning that in an era where a streaming service saves the consumer money on pay-per-views, the 2014 SummerSlam was still roughly 10,000 buys away from beating the 1996 show anyway.